Today's video is about Thai rainbow millipedes. And this female here has just shed her skin today and appears to be nibbling on the remains of her exoskeleton. See a very small springtail there, crawling on her. When millipedes molt, they assume a coil shape, and sometimes people are confused when their millipedes enter the immobile position. They don't move for a couple days in advance of this sometimes. This is a time to be very careful, and I recommend you don't pick your millipedes up during this time. If you're not sure, it's better to leave them alone because it's a very fragile, delicate process. If you were to pick them up while they were in a pre-molt state, you could actually kill them, and especially as children sometimes do when they don't know about this, if you forcefully try to uncoil them. And so I had noticed maybe 7 hours ago that this one had just completed molting, and it looks now that I've disturbed it here, and so it's going to crawl away, but you can see that its exoskeleton has hardened suitably. I could actually hold this one and touch it at this point. May have finished molting yesterday or the day before even, I'm not sure. I don't open my millipede tanks very frequently. And so she's crawling underneath this piece of cork bark here with some of the others. Get a nice look at the group of them here. This is a reproducing colony of them. Should be seeing lots of babies soon. This species, their scientific name, has been a matter of some debate in the hobby for the nearly 20 years that they've been in the hobby. They've gone by a few different things that I won't repeat here just because we don't want to confuse. They don't currently have a species name that is known, these ones that have been in the hobby for a long time. But the genus is Apeuthes, A-P-E-U-T-H-E-S, and so we call them Thai rainbows, but they are Apeuthes species. Pretty famous for several reasons, in addition to being one of the exotic species that has been reproduced in the hobby for a few decades now, a couple decades. They are also a very long-lived species. I'll have to run upstairs and show it to you a little bit later, but Orrin McMonagle, in the last year or so, wrote a new article in his Invertebrates magazine about this species, and that's where I learned of their name change based on a scientist experienced with this family of millipedes. And that family, by the way, is Trigoniulidae. You guys may be familiar with Spirostreptidae, our orthoporus that are very common in the hobby. The Orthoporus ornatus comes in a couple different color forms. And then another family you're probably familiar with are the Spirobolidae, like our Narcissus americanus and Narcissus gordanus, very popular North American millipedes. But this family here, the Trigoniulidae, also includes this species here. They're kind of tucked in there, so I'm going to pull one out so that we can see it a little better. And if if we can get one to uncoil, it will make the video a little bit more interesting. There's one right there. It's sort of writhing a little bit because I disturbed it. But those bright legs there, now these are young specimens, an inch to an inch and a half long. But you saw there the bright yellow and orange legs. And under black light, I have a little bit too much light in the room at the moment, but let me turn this lights off here. See if we can't reveal something interesting about these. Well, I also have the camera light on. Let's see if I can cover just the flash up. No, not quite. Anyway, under black light, the legs of this species actually fluoresce. And that's because flameleg millipedes are known to do that. One of the few millipedes that isn't a flat millipede that fluoresces. Becomes much more vivid and impressive, of course, when they're a little bit older. But these flameleg millipedes are in the family Trigoniulidae. And speaking of, their species name is Trigoniulus. Oh, there's a good shot of the legs. Trigoniulus macropygus. And they get much, much more beautiful than this when they get larger. If you guys just go to Google, I might actually have some video of these that I could share with you guys if I look around enough. But if you go to Google and type in flameleg millipede, you'll see some very impressive shots. Now, in the same family of millipedes, some of you may be familiar with these. Sometimes they're called rusty millipedes or scarlet millipedes. On Bug Guide, they're listed as rusty millipedes, but this is Trigoniulus corallinus. And these are established in Florida, a small but rather bright red millipede. And they only reach about 2 inches in length, whereas the flame legs will reach 3 to 4 inches, 4 inches, I guess. And then these ones here, the Thai rainbows, they can reach up to 5 inches for older females. And that one there, that thicker one, because of that yellow banding, is more obviously a female. And this one here, I believe, is a male. You can see that little pointed tip at the end of the body. That's called the telson, a word some of you scorpion keepers may be familiar with. Well, this one has the yellow banding too. But a very pretty species. They've got kind of a smoky bluish coloration. And then those red to orange bands. Check out those compound eyes. This is a fortunate angle that we had there for just a moment. And of course, one of the interesting things about millipedes is always to watch the way they move, their legs and those wave-like patterns. And pretty obviously, you can see that there are 2 pairs of legs per segment in this shot right here. That's a characteristic that distinguishes millipedes from centipedes. Centipedes only have 1 pair of legs per segment. Another interesting feature here of this, and Oren discusses this in that recent issue of Invertebrates magazine about this species, you see those black dots there on the side of the body. Those are called ozophores, and it's from those holes that the millipedes exude their secretions, toxins, distasteful compounds, if a predator were to come up to one of these, they would secrete, and the predator would likely spit them back out because of the taste. Now, those secretions will also discolor your hands. Get another look here at the ozophores. But it's not something that you need to worry about in terms of contact with your skin. I've had secretions before that have gotten into cuts I didn't even really know I had on my hands, and it stings a little bit. But, of course, don't eat them. You can see there a blemish on this millipede. Take it in a little closer here. Sometimes the millipedes will get a breach like that, and it will sort of form what's analogous to a scab. After the specimen molts, that blemish will be completely repaired, or at least partially repaired, and through a few molts they are generally back to normal looking. It can be a source of entry for microorganisms and like bacteria and fungus, but most of the time they're just sort of cosmetic, superficial, and don't affect the health of the specimens. Definitely one of my favorite species of all time. They are perhaps the longest lived, rivaling the African giant blacks. Warren mentions in his article that he had one that was pushing 20 years, and he takes very careful notes about all of these things. And so, very impressive that this species hangs around that long, and they're very attractive too. One of the nice things about these millipedes is that they do really well at room temperature. 75 degrees is probably perfect for them. But they'll tolerate it a little bit warmer, and my house gets down into the 60s at night, and that's not a problem for them either. Take another look at this cast-off exoskeleton. Wonder if this specimen here is going to come back and nibble on it a little bit. I do believe that's the one that molted. Let's take a look inside there. So right where the ozophores are, I think that's about where the exoskeleton sort of breaks in half. And you can see here that the tip, it had that division all the way down there. But the specimen crawled out of this. You can see this last little bit, you can see the telson there in the old exoskeleton. So definitely one of the best millipede species in the history of the online pet millipede hobby. Super easy to care for. They just feed on decaying wood and compost soil, composted materials. I have some carrots in there. Those have been in there for about a week, so you can see that they aren't necessarily a favorite food. There's also some cucumber in there from that same feeding. We drop some fish food pellets in here. Lots of leaf litter that they chew up. You can see some veins and the remains of that leaf there. And one of the signs of healthy millipedes is this frass, these pellets, these fecal pellets. And if your soil, and I put some fresh soil in here a little earlier today, I just kind of bunched it up and dumped it right here, so you can see that the consistency of it is more like the soil that you might get through my website. It's fresh, uneaten, unprocessed by the millipedes, whereas this older soil over on the other side of the cage, they're starting to work through that a bit and convert it into fecal pellets. You can see a really good bunch of the pellets actually right there, rounded. Those have passed through the system of the millipedes. And if you see that the substrate in your tank is turning into pellets, that's a very good sign that your millipedes are very healthy and that you're doing everything correct. The soil isn't terribly wet in here. I do keep it a little bit moist, but not terribly moist, certainly not a mud. And they definitely like something to climb on. This is a breeding tank, not a display tank, but it is an arboreal species, as evidenced by their longer than average legs. And they will take advantage of climbing structures if you offer climbing structures to them in the form of branches or most anything else in the tanks. Definitely one of the most recommended species. They are very long-lived and very simple to care for, very hardy, very little die-off compared with some other species. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button down below. I always appreciate your comments. Thai rainbow millipedes, Apeuthes species. Hey, if you like me, give me one of those thumbs up, and please subscribe and hit the little bell so you know when I post next. Please share me with your friends on social media. Thank you for watching.